My name is Barry Tibbetts. For those of you that I have not met personally, I'm the town manager. And what I'd like to do today is to go through the agenda as soon as we bring it up. I'm going to show you what we're going to talk about this morning. But before we jump into that agenda, we're going to do one more thing first. So I want to talk a little bit about the overall project. We got a couple slides on that. For the status of where the construction is, Greg Pellerin, who is the Portland Water District's Director of Engineering, he's going to go through a set of slides. And then there are some do's and don'ts. Scott Furman, who is the Portland Water District's Director of Wastewater Services, he's here, and he's going to go through some of that with us. Bob Burns, the Assistant Manager, is going to take us through the service connections. And then we have from F.R. Mahoney E1, that's one of the partners that we pulled to work with on this project. I've got Darryl Koppel and David Spencer over here. We're going to talk about those E1 pumps and how they work and how we're going to talk. We do have some materials. We're going to make sure we get them passed out to everybody. We'll go through that and Q&A for questions. But before we jump into that first slide and go through this, what I'd like to do, and maybe we'll start over here with you, Greg. Sure. We'll just go down this road and back. Just introduce yourself. Just tell us who, my staff is talking here, Portland Water District staff here, and I just think it's good for the people to understand who else is here. So.
All right, I'm Greg Pellerin. I'm the Engineering Services Manager for the Portland Water District, and I've been the project lead on this project since 2022, 3 years.
Eric Jagir, 759 and 765 Roosevelt Trail, and Planet Fitness Post Office Plaza.
Jay Wise with them all. Bob Burns, Assistant Manager.
Roger Cropley, Communications for Wyndham.
Jill Ireland with KFC Taco Bell.
Paul Heineck from KFC Taco Bell.
Brian Moore, Public Works Director.
Pete Woodward, Operations Manager.
Steve Rich with Fish Pond. Wayne
Barry Elias, WDC volunteer.
Mario Burge, MJ Works Point.
Jim Cummings, looking for work.
Lori Falella, Cross Insurance, Louise Warren.
Weber Cushing, Northeast Residential Services.
Mark Jagir, 765 Roosevelt Trail.
I'm Scott Furman, Director of Wastewater Services for Portland Water District.
I'm Andrew Hammond, I'm Project Manager for MWH Construction.
Chris Froman, Director of Asset Management and Planning for the Water District.
Andrew Weaver, Associate Engineer at Portland Water District. John Rio, Code Enforcement Director for Wyndham.
Dave Nader, Town Council.
Bill Ryan, Town Council.
Mark Arianti, Town Engineer for Wyndham.
Dave Scammon, Bob Wyndham Church, and the Little Meeting House.
Great.
Elizabeth Fagan, Hanford.
Jay Wood,
I'm Lisa Fisher, Council Assistant.
I'm Governor County Development for Town.
I'm Dave Benson. I'm the Territory Manager in the Northeast for E1.
Daryl Capola, I'm the E1 rep for Maine, from Mahoney.
Well, thank you all for introducing yourselves. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. We're really excited about this project. We've been working on it with the Portland Water District since really 2021. And as you all know, the town of Wyndham has been talking about sewer in the North Wyndham area since the 1970s. And I've found at least 4 or 5 studies, different files in my office when I first came to Wyndham. And it's been a long-term objective for the community to put sewer into the North Wyndham area. And this, we're doing just a couple summary slides. You've already seen this just really quick. But I think that what this kind of shows you is what Wyndham looked like back in the late 1960s and what it looks like today. There's been a tremendous change that's happened here. We've had a lot of growth. We have a lot of services that flow through our town. And one of the things that we've been missing for a long time has been sewer. So when we originally set out to look at this, some of you will remember this when it was voted on in 2012, there was an alternative plan. It was defeated at the polls 80 to 20 because it encompassed including a lot of residential, and the cost was really not offset was going to be borne by really the residential side. And it really was collecting the effluent and pumping it all the way westward. Well, since that time, technology has advanced on many different levels. And as we partnered with the water district, what we learned and came to a deeper understanding was that you could run a smaller, compact system and really just address the business district area. And as we kept going through the status of all the reports that have been done, we knew that particularly in the red and the blue areas, there was a tremendous amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that was being placed into the ground. In some cases, 3 to 7 times the allowable limit of federal law. Fortunately, we have public water for a good part of this, but it still was an overhanging issue for the community. Because really, the EPA at any point, when you're that far off those federal specs, they can come in and say, you will fix it. And they just go out and do it, and then we're left with the bill. So we took the initiative, partnering with the water district, which actually, they have rights to oversee all wastewater facilities, which was granted in 1954, I think, or 56, by the legislature. And that goes around the whole lake, all of Sebago Lake, because that's a public water supply for over 250,000 people here in southern Maine. So they've been a great partner with us. Why don't you jump to that next one for me? So when we originally looked at this, we picked out this magenta area was our goal, was to incorporate all these businesses within that magenta border. When we originally applied to the state Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund, they had roughly been awarded around I think it was $101 million. They had 78 applications for municipalities and quasi-municipalities, which is a lot of sewer districts, to be able to go and get 2% money. We went to them with the information that I just shared about the phosphates and not being in the nitrogen, not having sewer in this area. And when we put our application in, we put in an application for $40 million, which is the largest application that really had ever been submitted to the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund. Out of that $40 million request that we put in, we were the second top priority within the state for fixing wastewater. And they actually awarded us the full $40 million, which has never been done before. And on top of that, they gave us another $2 million in debt forgiveness, and then about a year later, they gave us another $1 million in debt forgiveness, and another year after that, they gave us another $1 million in debt forgiveness. So that's how I'm sharing that, because I think it's important to understand that from the state's perspective and EPA's perspective, they really want to see this. They want to make this work. So, what you can see is some different colored lines here. The plane is that blue dot out there, right there. That's next to Manchester School. And I really want to thank, I know Chris Howell couldn't be here today, but working with the school has been really a key partner for us. We originally went to them before the sewer project even was to the point of having a defined definition of where we were going to go and what we were going to do. We went to the school just to convert some of their woods into more fields for the kids, which they agreed to, and we got funding to do that. But as we moved along with the plans for what we wanted to do here in North Wyndham, we needed a place to be able to put the effluent after it was treated. Because when that effluent comes into this, our processing won't look quite like that machine, but it'll be pretty close. But the water coming in is this brown color. It gets treated through, and this is what comes out. That's the end product that's going to be placed back in the ground. Because in 1972, federal law came into effect for the Clean Air and Water Act, and basically says you're going to run it through a sewer plant. If you can't put it into an existing river body below a certain class river, it has to be clean. So we have to put it in the ground. So that's why our partnership with the school, which is a three-way partnership between us, PWD, and RSU, we can put all that effluent that's treated, it's going to come out, and as that filtrated, it's going in the ground underneath the fields. So that water's not going to be used to be on the fields, not going to be used for watering, it's going about 2 feet underneath, because the soils are that good. We also do a lot of hydrogeological studies to determine the amount of water that can be taken in that area. Fortunately for Wyndham, pretty much everything that Magenta and going farther northerly is a really great sand gravel basin, so the water, it can handle the water. The other great thing that worked to our advantage was, when you look at groundwater and how it flows off to the side here, instead of flowing down towards one of the ponds or the lakes, it really follows 302. It's kind of amazing how the water flows right along the edge of 302, so that really helped us do it. But as we got into the project, we got our pricing, we got the funding, we determined that we needed to go from the plant, and we need to get all the way over to the backside of Home Depot, and we need to get all the way through to pick up Walmart and Shaw's. We had originally in our plans, we wanted to run legs, an extension here where these red circles are, and we had to pull back a little bit because of our funding. We only had so much money in the pot, and we had to pick where our highest users would be and where we get the highest flow to get our plant up and operating. We have built into our model the funding for those extensions. It's now a question about timing for us, okay, and capacity. So we'll get there, it's just going to take us probably an extra couple of years, which is fine because I think that plant, we plan to have operational by April 17th of 2026. And we'll be doing the connections before that. We'll get into that a little farther down the road. To the next slide.
All right.
I'm going to turn it over to an expert for you.
So just a quick update on the project status. This is really brief. We'll go through a little bit of the details of the plan. And so as Barry just explained, we're installing a sewer system and an advanced MBR wastewater treatment facility and a perk-right subsurface effluent disposal system. This is incorrect. We should just say sewer collection system here. Go ahead. So starting with the collection system, I think you've all probably seen this diagram now. Barry just showed something similar. Basically, the way this is going to work is there are a couple of gravity trunk lines located here, running across from Abbey Road, across 115, and in front of Manchester Elementary School to the location of the new plant, and one that's going to come up from here on Franklin Drive, across 302, and then across the name of this road, over to 115 to a wastewater and drainage and wastewater pump station at the intersection of Manchester Drive and 115. Get pumped up on this path and discharge here, where it'll then flow by gravity to the treatment facility. So that is how the collection system is going to work. Sorry, go ahead. This is just a slide showing the status. I'm sure you've all seen this. I think my project update is going to be pretty apparent to you all because it's local and you're driving by this stuff every day. But Shaw Brothers, our contractor, or MWH's sub, is making great progress in the collection system right now. We've got the wastewater pump station mostly installed. We've got a lot of gravity sewer installed. And if you could actually go back. So to date, we've installed the sewer here. This is the utility corridor and the influent sewer to the wastewater treatment facility. This deep gravity trunk line in front of the Manchester Elementary School at 115. And we've installed the gravity sewer force main in this property here. And I think we're somewhere around about here with the gravity sewer as of this week. And the schedule to complete the gravity sewer is that we're going to be finishing this stretch over the next month and a half or so, and this whole section should be done by the end of August is what we're projecting now. It may slip into September, but regardless, it'll be done by the end of this construction season. Go ahead. And two more, if you would. So that's the collection system. Any questions about that schedule I just laid out? I know it's pretty basic. All right, the wastewater treatment facilities is a great aerial shot that MWH provided of the progress that's happening over there. Back here, you can see these are the process tanks. I'm going to talk a little bit about the treatment process in a minute. And this is going to be the process building here. So looking at this, Sposino Road is here, and Manchester Elementary School is somewhere down in this area. So that's the orientation that you're looking at there. These tanks inside the building are membrane filtration tanks, I should say, and effluent pumping system. But this is just a quick look at the schedule from the beginning. You know, we're somewhere around about here now. We're in the middle of the wastewater treatment facility construction. Collection system has been installed in multiple phases, as we just talked about. We're expecting to wrap up collection system phase 2. This got jarbled a little bit. This should actually be squished back to by the end of 2025. Services, and Bob's going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but that's going to follow the collection system installation. The expectation is that the wastewater treatment facility construction is completed sometime around January or February of 26, and then we'll go through startup and testing, SCADA calibration, and automation, wrapping that all up. And substantial completion is expected in April of 2026. Go ahead. Just a quick look at the processes of the plants. This is important because, you know, some of these processes are a little sensitive to what goes into the sewer. Scott's going to talk about this in a minute. It starts with, well, it starts with an influent pump station, of course, but influent fine screening, 2 millimeter fine screening, which is required for the downstream membrane filtration system. We've got plant equalization, which is basically emergency and maintenance storage. It's 100,000 gallons, which is really conservative, and we're really happy to have that. We've got secondary treatment, which consists of biological nutrient removal to biologically treat for nitrogen and phosphorus. We've also got but supplementary chemical, nitrogen and phosphorus removal capabilities. And then lastly, we've got our membrane filtration system. So these are the hollow fiber membranes that are going to allow, with 0.4 micron nominal pore size, they're going to allow for that super clear effluent that Barry showed with the slide before. So this is a state-of-the-art facility, and it's going to provide excellent quality. Go ahead. And that's it for me. I'm going to hand it over to Scott, who's going to talk a little bit about do's and don'ts of the sewer.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Scott Furman, Director of Wastewater Services for the Portland Water District. Barry talked about this being some innovative technology. I did run 4 membrane plants some time ago. I was involved in the Patriot Stadium project, so if you've been to Patriot Stadium, you've interacted with a membrane bioreactor. One of the differences, though, is we packaged this with an innovative groundwater dispersal system. So really looking forward to starting this up and operating. As an operating treatment plant, though, there's things that the users of the system can help us with. So what we generally talk about in the industry is anything that comes out of you, anything that comes out of, you know, a typical activity, showers, sinks, cleaning, things like that. When we step into commercial and heavier use, there's some products that you're using, there's some things that you're doing that we just want to share with you. There are ordinances in Wyndham that give you more detail. That's not what I'm going to do today. But avoid things like abrasive materials. If you put abrasive materials in there, you're going to wear out the sewer, you're going to wear out our equipment. That can be like floor cleaning. We can't just be cleaning floors and sweeping out in the drains kind of thing, especially if you have a very large facility. So there's traps and things like that that code may require, follow things like that. Fibers and screening materials. In your personal lives, please don't flush baby wipes, don't flush cleaning wipes, they don't break down. When they get to a treatment plant, we're going to find them. And they can plug pumps, they can plug pipes, they can plug your system, they can cause issues at the treatment facility. We do have screens, but those screens are challenged when we put material down there that wants to fight back. So cleaning rags, things like that. With hotels, for instance, we often have challenges in some of the other communities we serve with cleaning gloves and then cleaning wipes. So somebody will go in, clean a room, and then maybe they'll flush that. We find that. That's a problem. The good news is there's not a lot of connections right now, so we'll have a pretty good opportunity to find you and have a direct conversation with you if we have to, along with the town. A little bit of education, a little bit of cooperation, Fast oils and grease. That's a problem for treatment facilities. It's a problem for pump stations, it's a problem for collection systems, it generates odors, it causes backups, and in a facility like this, it can cause problems with the equipment. Oils and grease will coat things like membranes. So, grease traps. Operate your grease traps well, coordinate with the code enforcement officer, keep records on cleaning and things like that. Heavy metals and toxic chemicals. There's a lot of concern out there about materials like this right now. There are limits in the ordinance. If you are using specific chemicals and materials at some of the facilities, follow proper disposal recommendations on things like that. Avoid slug loading. What is a slug loading? A slug loading is something that's kind of built up and you're kind of relieved when it's gone. For a treatment plant though, that means we get a bunch of something at the treatment plant that we're not expecting, and it could cause the process interruption. And then excessive nutrients. That's the final thing I wanted to talk about, because the driver for this project is very pointed out. One of them is contamination of the aquifer with nitrogen and phosphorus. The persistence of the town in getting this project to where we could construct it and ultimately operate it is amazing. Every option that we came up with and they came up with for disposing of the effluent, even though it's really treated to a very high level, was a huge challenge. We couldn't put it in surface water. We tried to figure out how to get it down to Westbrook. That didn't make sense. It's going into the ground. But when it goes into the ground, there's a concern about nitrogen. And there's a concern ultimately where this will flow through the groundwater and eventually it may appear in surface water. Very low concentrations again, but things like phosphorus and fresh water can cause algal blooms and other concerns. We want to keep the water clean. Low phosphorus will help us do that. Where does phosphorus appear? Cleaning. Pore cleaning. So just make sure that you're using low phosphate cleaners. Laundry, that can be another source. Nitrogen, it's in a lot of different materials. So just be aware of what you're putting down the sewer. If you have a question, reach out to the town, reach out to us. We're partners here. And it's kind of interesting for me to see all the faces here today, because for the past 20 years, I've been shopping and visiting all the facilities that you have. So I have a personal stake in this. It's a little embarrassing to be here in front of Planet Fitness because you can probably see my attendance records. So if you ever have a question, give us a call. Yes, sir.
Again, I'm Bob Burns, I'm the assistant manager with the town, and I'm going to talk to you about the last stage of this project, which is the part you're here for, the part you care about, which is the sewer connection. How are we going to connect your septic system that you have? How are we going to connect that to the sewer system, right? What Shopper is working on out there is the conveyance system. That's the main lines that are going to run the sewage to the treatment plant. We have a separate bid out right now for contractor selection to do this specific tie-in from your facility to the conveyance system. Okay. Right now we have 5 contractors that are interested. We have a bid opening day coming up in June, and hopefully you'll be hearing about who we select in short order. So some details on how this is kind of going to go down. It says 3 forms up on the slide. There's actually 4 forms, but the 3 forms that we need to talk about. There's a sewer application form. Okay, folks will fill that out, and that will create your account with the town and the water district. There's a participation agreement, which kind of outlines, what we're signing up for and what you're signing up for in terms of the various activities that are going to go on. And then lastly is this temporary easement agreement. Basically, you're going to, assuming you're gonna opt in and sign up, you're going to sign this, and it's gonna allow for a contractor in town to enter your facility, enter your property, and make that connection, and get you flowing. The fourth form is an opt-out form. I should have started by saying, there's no fees to any of this. This is all born within the project budget, so you folks are gonna be able to connect without paying a fee.
Really?
Yeah, no fee. If you opt out, however, if you decide to stay on your existing septic system, there is a readiness to serve fee because, and I believe most of you here are abutting the conveyance line. There were some invites sent out to some other folks that don't directly abut, but we will, you're going to have to meet individually to really get into all the details. Each one of these sites is different. Some of your facilities, some of the parcels are going to be far easier to serve with sewer, just with a simple gravity connection. Running it downhill from where the pipe outlets are building to the sewer stuff. Simple, right? Assuming nothing's in the way. As we did, we're going to find that out. The selected contractor and the town will meet with you on site to discuss your infrastructure on your parcel, so we understand, what's running where, so that we don't accidentally damage other utilities that may be running to your site. Gravity connection, that would be the simplest, right? Everyone can envision intercepting, cutting your pipe that comes out of your building and flowing that downhill to the sewer stub into the conveyance system. That's the simplest approach. Some of you folks are the other way. Some of you are downhill and have to pump up, and you'll have a different scenario. Some of you already have pump stations. You already have pumps that you're pumping effluent up to a tank and or your leach field. In those situations, we'll be looking at the E1 pump solution. Reps are here to talk about that. There's also the potential for some type of a hybrid scenario. Hannaford is here. Reps from Hannaford, they have a complicated septic system. Theirs is not your standard septic system. Some of you other property owners also have complicated systems. They're not just like a house design where the effluent flows into a tank and then by gravity flows into your leach field. Some folks have pumps that you constantly are maintaining. We probably can't solve that, right? You'll still have a pump system. So when we meet, we'll be going over what the solution is, how we get your sewage into the conveyance system. Grease traps, we talked about that. You folks are certainly aware. I mean, if you have a septic system, your number one enemy is grease, right? And so if you have grease traps, I'm sure you're familiar with maintaining those, but we will be inspecting those to make certain that they're up to speed, up to code. John Rios here with our code enforcement office, and we'll be checking on that because we mentioned this is a very high-tech system. It's also sensitive, so we have to be real careful about what it's receiving. This isn't just flush it down the drain and forget it. We have to pay attention to the various chemicals and such that are being sent down the line.
If I just may interject something about one of those E1 pumps, when we looked at the system design on this, if one of your properties has a pump station that's not adequate or it will need a pump station, we are absorbing that cost in this whole project. We're getting to you and we're going to connect to you. There's no charge to you. If you decide you don't want to connect, okay, then 2 years later you come and say, now I want to connect. There is a fee, a minimum of $5,300 initially, and then you will have to pay for all connections, related costs and everything back to us. So we decided that for new businesses coming outside that Magenta area, particularly, when I say new, I mean new construction businesses, they will pay that $5,300 fee. Okay, but everybody in this room, everybody in that area, you're grandfathered in, you don't have to pay that $5,300 fee. We did that because we wanted to incentivize you to join into the system. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to get in. So, sorry.
No problem. So, there's going to be a lot of questions that we don't have answers to right now. We haven't selected our contractor, but But suffice it to say that we envision, once selected, that there are some sites that we think the contractor could start working on immediately. The businesses that are south of the Woody's Corner intersection on the east side of 302, those businesses, almost all of them have their septic system coming out the rear of the facility. We think we can do that work without impacting your business, without impacting your patrons, without impacting traffic. However, there are other businesses that I can envision right now that when we go to connect, it is directly going to impact your patrons. So I think what we're saying right now is you may want to pick a day. We'll work with you, but you're going to have to pick a day where you're shut down. We're going to be, the contractor will be excavating through your site to make that connection, and we'll work quickly to repair the site and get you back in business. But some of these sites, there's really, realistically, no way to do this work without impacting, motor vehicles and also probably foot traffic. Daytime construction, larger businesses, right? They'll be able to remain open, but again, they'll be impacted. Like Hanford is here. Hanford there's multiple ways to enter that facility, but as you can envision, some people have their favorite approach way to get there, and if there's construction, they're going to have to seek an alternate route. Again, we're going to meet with you folks to lay out exactly how this is going to go with the contractor, so that we're all understanding the impacts. We're going to photo document the site, and then the site gets restored to as good, if not better, condition than when we arrived. That's the approach. The septic tank. So as part of this connection, the septic tank will be the top will be destroyed. I believe the bottom of the tank has to be broken and then filled with sand or stone. So we're going to leave the septic tank. The concrete work will be left on your site along with the leach field, but it will be rendered inoperable. Some of you folks are probably sitting there saying, geez, Bob, how are you going to connect these businesses in the summer, but the treatment plant isn't going to open until April of 2026, right? Well, where's it going? So we're working with the contractor. They make a particular style valve called a diverter valve, and that would be the approach on some of the earlier sites if we can move ahead with those. So your sewage will still be flowing to your septic system, and in that scenario, let's say you're Amados. I don't know if Amados is here today, but let's say you're Amados. It's probably one of the simplest sites that I can envision right now. Contractor wants to go in the summer, so they'll install the diverter valve, run the pipe from the stub from the conveyance system up to the diverter valve to your facility. Your sewage would still flow in your septic system, and then as a second effort, contractor would come back once the plant's operational, turn the diverter valve, or possibly completely remove it, hard pipe the connection, and then they'll abandon the septic tank. So if they go early, there's probably a couple steps to the process. Once the plant is open, we can do it all in one shot, right? So it'll be a day in and out, we hope. Contact information. Certainly you're going to have questions, but we can speak after the meeting, and we can kind of look at specifics on your parcels. We have, in our files, we have all the your septic tank locations, your leach field locations, based on the permits that you've already put in for in the past. So we got a rough idea, but sometimes they're not perfect. Sometimes the site sketches aren't perfect, so that's why it's important to meet up with you folks and go over it. I think we have time for questions, and we appreciate you coming out.
Timelines, we're always coming up with questions with some of my real estate clients. They want to know when is it going to be actually hooked up. For example, Wyndham Shopping Plaza, 771 Roosevelt Trail, multi-tenanted shopping center. They're asking me, when do you see sewer? happening, so we can plan. So the date part is the part that keep asking.
Yeah. So we know that the plant will be operational on April 17th, 2026. So from now until then, up till that date, we want to meet with the businesses, i.e. the plaza, the owners, or you, whoever the representative is, and let's talk about what's the best time to come in to do that for you. In some cases, it may be, well, for instance, I never see Steve Napolitano, but I talked with Steve, and Steve said to me, Barry, the best time for me is late September and October. So I don't want to go in the summer, and I don't want to go in the winter. Okay, so that's really my optimal time. So we would sit with the owner or the representative, we would determine what that date is and figure out how to do that. In some cases, it may be that diverter valve that Bob talked about. In other cases, we may not need to do the diverter valve. Because we do know that the line, as when it's put in, the trunk line that goes in, that's done by August. Okay, the ability to hook in after that will fluctuate. We anticipate the plant probably will be operational by January, and they'll be doing testing, so some flow coming in. We may be able to turn some places on earlier than later. As far as, probably should have put a slide up there about this, but we're not, when we go live in April and everybody's connected, you're going to get your first month or two free of whatever flows in, okay? Because not a lot of customers, maybe 40 or 50 customers, we're going to, property owners, we're going to hook up initially. But there's going to be a slight delay in how we set up that billing and how we do that, because we want to make it as easy as possible for people to connect in and get function.
Can you use it for site location? Can you do the work on weekends, or is it still open during the weekdays?
That's a conversation we can have with whoever our selected contractor is. It might very well be, if that works what's best for the business and the contractor can do that, we might be able to do that.
So I'll move overnight into consideration as well.
Night work's really difficult because for smaller, for some contractors that are really large, it might be a little easier, but for some that are smaller, it might be more difficult. We prefer to do it during the day if possible, but we're willing to work to find the best solution and the best avenue. If you have one way in, it's going to be a lot more challenging. If you have two ways in, we can redirect traffic and we can make it work.
Maybe when you secure your bids, you could make that hard nights and weekends an option and let them put it, so then you can select that contractor to that business that needed to do a night and weekend.
Yeah.
We've talked to the contractors about it, but as you can imagine, that adds a lot to the cost, right? We're trying to make this fit within the budget. You know, we're providing the connection free. I mean, it's not, I'm gonna throw some numbers out, we can't hold me to them, but I mean, just to hire a contractor to run the line from your facility, specifically out into the street, is just starting at least $10,000, right? And so we're absorbing that within our budget. I don't think we're going to be able to do night work. Weekends, we'll see how they feel about that. I mean, sometimes it's going to come down to what they have for manpower and how it gets approached. But, and I just thought I could just explain the different types of systems as far as the parcels and what they are likely to be dealing with. So the treatment plant is over here, GMP1, which was our first run of gravity sewer line. It's right here up to the Walgreens. All of those facilities, I believe, are simple gravity feed. So that those parcels there, that should be simple, simple connections. Then we have a pump station down here, so all of this is going to be running downhill to the pump station. Okay. Some of these connections, some of the parcels in here are pretty simple. It should be gravity as well. But, we are aware that Walmart, this is Shaw's. We are aware that Shaw's has some pumps. Walmart will likely need a pump as well. They have quite a run to get over to the conveyance system. Hannaford is down here. That building has, I think, 3 different septic systems. And Hannaford's, I think most of the leach field anyway is out in the parking lot. They have pumps. So a little more complicated than some of the smaller sites in terms of connections, but just to give everyone a clue as to what we're looking at. Other questions? Jim?
I've got properties that are just on city water, and properties that are on city water and sewer. The ones that are on city water and sewer down in South Windsor, it costs me more for water and sewer than it does to heat the buildings and the hot water. How's the pricing going to be compared to Portland Water District, what we have now?
Great question.
Yep, so preliminary numbers that we've run through to operate the facility and to take care of not only the operational expenses, but also some of the future expenses that we anticipate. We expect that sewer rate to be very similar to the city of Portland, to be honest with you. We're going to probably come in somewhere around the city of Portland rate, and we'll hold that for at least 3 years. Because the total capacity of this plant is 154,000 gallons, as we bring different businesses on, we're not going to bring 154,000 gallons of operational capacity on immediately. It's going to take us probably a year to 2 years as we connect and bring everybody in. So the first year's operational, our revenue stream is going to be quite low. And so the town has set aside money in our TIP accounts to cover that cost to run the plant, so we don't have to have the rates higher than they need to be. We're going to absorb that within our existing TIP budgets. But as the different businesses are all connected and we get up to those capacity levels, we don't anticipate to be higher than the city of Portland. Where we end up in the future will depend on the total volume of effluent that we end up treating. We have planned in this project, for the treatment plant, we built into the original cost of the whole project additional capacity tanks, which Greg mentioned, which allows us to add additional growth in businesses coming in. We've also built additional, not only tanks, but we've built capacity to add additional membrane trains to be able to treat the effluent. And we've also built into this, because we've waived all those fees for the original group coming in, as additional businesses come in after the date, there is a fee that they'll be paying. And that money is being set aside to pay for the added capacity and changes in the facility. So the membrane trains are not going to be picked up as an additional expense by existing users. So we tried to lay this out such that we've got revenue streams coming in from the new projects to pay for the operational. Future capital is paid in 2 different ways, either through impact fees and or sewer user fees of new customers coming in. But back to the original question, which was, what's the rate? I think it's going to be very close to the city of Portland. And that's really due to the fact that treatment plants are expensive. We'll have probably all said and done, taking back out, we've got grants from Collins and Kings, from federal and state, deductions on debt forgiveness by Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. And I didn't mention this earlier on when I shared that. The rate that we're borrowing on that Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund is 2%. So it really cuts the deal to make this, to bring this about. But backing out all those additional benefits that we've gotten, we'll probably have $50 million into this project to make this work. When we go to connect all of you, Bob mentions 10,000. Some businesses are going to be way more than 10,000. But, and we really wrestled with this, is how do we say to, for instance, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or to Eric's Beer, where I know we're going to need a pump station at Eric's place, but it probably, I may need, I may not need it at Kentucky, but I want to make sure that it's fair. I want you all to connect. We just had to look at it and said, which is going to be the cost. We can't play where one gets, has to pay more to connect and the other doesn't have to pay. The idea is we want to connect everybody through this, and that's how we structured the grant system. We've set aside a fair amount of money for the connections, probably over $1.5 million and slightly higher than that. It doesn't sound, it sounds like a lot of money, but when you start adding in, we're going to go in, we're going to cut through your property, we're going to take pavement out, we're going to take the curbings out, we're going to put a pump station in, we're going to put everything back together, and it's going to be just as good or better than what it was. It just costs money today. It's just a challenge for us.
Worst case scenario, if it breaks down, where is it going?
Pardon?
If the sewer system breaks down?
The system,
Yeah, that's a good question. So our friends in the Portland Water District have a good answer for that one.
failure's not an option.
Yeah, right, that's the first answer. The second answer is,
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
so the question was, what happens if the system, the station fails, right? What are we gonna do with the effluent?
We don't have an option for that.
We'll see.
We never have a bad day.
So at a wastewater treatment plant that might be discharging to a surface water body, we're generally designed to flow by gravity. So something will come in, something will flow through the plant, and something will go out. We report that to the state, we address the issue, and we improve and hopefully avoid that in the future. Everything's coming in here, and then we have to treat it and put it through a very sensitive system that discharges it or disperses it to the ground. And when it disperses it to the ground, it's how many feet of tubing, Greg?
Oh, it's something like 8 miles or 5 miles, and it's a lot of feet tubing.
So there's miles and miles of what looks like irrigation tubing, they're a couple feet down below the ground. And they have these little microscopic, not microscopic, but these little pressure valves that open up. My point is you can't put solids into this system. So we don't have an option for a bad day. Trucks. That's a lot of trucks. The option, the good news here is, Barry talked about membrane facilities. We have an equalization tank up front, and that allows flow to come in. So we have some in the front ability to hold water. We have an emergency generator, so that when we lose power, the plant will run. We have multiple trains. The membrane systems are fairly well established in terms of how they run. So if the treatment plant, we're not getting the materials I talked about, then the membrane plants, we have redundancy, they're reliable. We have redundant chemical systems. We have redundant groundwater dispersal systems. It's got multiple zones. There's plenty of redundancy built into this. And because of that, we're confident we can get the job done. But this plant doesn't shut off, and we could haul trucks, but that's a lot of trucks. 150,000 gallons and 3,500 gallons truck is a lot of trucks.
We don't
fail.
So, does that answer your question?
Sure.
There's,
There is no answer.
the answer is, there's so much redundancy built into it that really for a complete failure, it's pretty hard to imagine. However, if it did, right, that we have the button approach, the D-Day approach, which would be trucks, right? But that's.
A lot of trucks. I don't think we'll ever get there.
Thanks, Scott. Eric?
So just getting back to the cost thing you referred to before, is it fair to say that for every dollar we spend on water, we're going to spend $3 on this? Is that roughly what it is?
That's typical, that's pretty typical. 1 to 3 is typical. Water to sewer. Sewer, you have to treat a lot differently than water, so the cost is usually 3 times or greater.
Yeah, so if I spend $1 today on water, I'm going to spend $4 on the whole system.
Yeah.
Water and the office. Okay. Second question, I just want to go back to the timing that you guys laid out to make sure they're getting it right. You got an RFP, you're expecting those bids back in June, you said we would hear back sometime thereafter, we'll say that's July. And then you said that the process would be for the contractor and perhaps you folks to come out to each individual site to kind of plan it out. Is that important? Because I've already had tenants asking me, hey, what's the impact? So can I go back to them and say, in August-ish, September-ish, we're gonna have site visits with the subcontractor, laying out exactly what the impact is gonna be? Is that kind of what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't mean that's when the work will occur.
No, I agree.
I hope the contractor will provide options to work through the whole winter, right? I mean, I think after Christmas, probably going to guess most of your businesses here, but that's probably a slow point. You know, that might be more ideal to get some of the trickier sites, but we have to get the contractor on board and we're going to work through this and then, you know, we do folks too.
So it's an August or September meeting with the contractor to put the plan in place.
Got it. Yes, sir.
So Steve wanted to make sure you guys didn't think he didn't want to come. He's with the Sun Energy Care, so just wanted to let you know that. Obviously, this is very important. We've met about the access behind. Are we still going to meet with contractors even though we've met with you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. And timing still is good for the fall for both of our businesses, which is great. And without fail, we always have to say, we know that this needs to happen. At the same time, we still don't believe that median strip needs to be done. So since we're in a town meeting, we want to get that on record every time we possibly can. So, yeah.
Blake, do you have a question?
Well, I think he kind of answered it actually, but then also they will consider for those who use lawn irrigation, that you won't be charged the usage fee on the sewer, is that correct?
Oh, as far as like a sub-meter question?
You could have a sub-meter.
Yes.
You could have a sub-meter separating that
The
out.
irrigation.
Yes. Anyone from the water district want to explain that?
Sub-meter, Chris.
Oh, sub-metering, well, that's gonna have to be up to the town whether or not they're gonna want to be sub-metering, well, sub-metering. But if the town does, it's a meter that would measure the amount of water that would not go into the sewer.
Right.
So if you're watering lawns and stuff like that, that's not going into the sewer, so you want to keep track of that, and then it would be a deduct on the bill.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I might have missed it, but when is the, first of all, thank you guys. This has been long, but this project's long overdue. Appreciate all the time, effort, and energy you put into it. Abbey Lane, when do you expect crossing over 115 and getting that main trunk line in on Abbey Lane?
Very soon.
I think the plan is to have the Abbey Lane construction done, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the end of August or early September?
Yes.
Got it.
Second question is, who's the right person in the room to talk about if we want to we just have a lot of tenants, and if we want to meter them separately, who's the person that we should talk to about how that happens and how to coincide that with the hookup?
Start with the town, and then the town and the district will work together on initiating the use process for that. I think is.
We'll talk to the water district, we can set up a meeting, come over and we'll work through with you.
Okay.
But it's very doable.
It just seems to make sense to pass it on to the people who are renting the units.
Sure.
We do allow, on the private side, you are allowed to put, if you have like behind your main meter for your service, if you've got multiple tenants, and the water service splits off and goes to them, folks are allowed to put private, typically for Nemo meters on those lines, so you would still get the bill for your primary water service line, but then with those private Nemo meters that you guys would own, you would be able to then bill out separately. But we typically don't. I think unless there's separate services going to the properties, it's typically just one meter for one service for water districts bill.
Do you have questions?
Yes, just quickly. With residential, the line from the house to the city, is that going to be included in the maintenance costs? Or is that something the businesses are going to have to pick up if something does happen to that line, maintenance and cost to repair?
So this is from an actual house, a residential?
Well, no, it would be from the business. I know from residential side?
Yeah, so once we're complete with the work, right, which will be done for code, for plumbing code, then that is your system out to the street.
Okay,
And that line would be the business owner's responsibility, it would be private, it would be, in your
Yeah.
case, it would be you will own that.
okay.
And if you get coverage of that, I'm gonna go over.
That's exactly.
Right, and like I just mentioned, I threw a number up there, $10,000, that's probably somewhat dated, but, in the simplest scenario, that's
Yeah.
minimum what you're looking at if that had to be replaced, right, in the future, but, we're probably talking about a 50-year lifespan.
Right.
I'm just throw that out there, maybe even longer, right?
Just dotting your i's, crossing your t's.
Sure. Councilman Meadow?
What's the fee if you go by somebody's business and they don't connect?
So if we go by someone's business and they decide not to connect, there's a couple of things that will occur. One, there's a $200 a month standby service fee that you'll be, per our ordinance, that we'll bill you for. But you will lose the benefit of the free connection all the way to your property. You will lose the benefit, you will then become responsible if you do decide to connect in 2 years or X amount of time after that. Whenever that date closure would actually be by 17th of April, you would be responsible for the fee to connect at $5,300. Plus you pay the $200 a month standby service fee for not connecting. And that would continue until you connect. We hope that the businesses don't opt that way. It doesn't really help us in the bigger picture, and I don't think it helps the businesses because, as I mentioned, with the simplest connection is probably, I think it's going to be more than 10,000. I think we've kind of talked about that, but you're losing quite a bit of money if you have to go back and do it yourself. The other thing is that when your system fails, you will have to connect, because that's in our ordinance. We will not allow you to replace a system if you're going to continue, you decide not to connect, your system fails, per the ordinance, we will require you to connect, and you'll have to take care of those fees. So that's why we really try to absorb all of this up front to make it as easy as possible. The other added benefit is, which is the whole purpose of doing this project, was really about, yes, we want to help our businesses, we want to provide a way for you to expand on your footprint, because now it becomes easier. You don't have to have this cumbersome septic system there. And per our ordinance, your development rights become more valuable to you. You're able to do more. But also, this is about protecting the environment. This is about doing the right thing. Wyndham has wanted to do this since the 1970s, and we finally have found the technology that can do it. If you get a chance, go to YouTube and Google Bill Gates and MBR, membrane bioreactor. He is kind of an aside, but it's really a great little video to watch. He basically took his personal money from one of his foundations and took this technology in the early 2000s and developed it to deliver this system to third world countries so they could have clean water. And he planted these all over Asia and into Africa. And this whole technology took a quantum leap in the early 2000s because of the investment that he made in trying to better the environment. So it's an interesting video to watch. We're reaping some of the benefits of that advanced technology here in Wyndham. It really wouldn't have worked 20 years ago, but it does now, and it's extremely successful, reliable, and we have a lot of redundancies put into this plan. We spent a lot of time making sure that we have redundancies so that we don't have problems in the future. And we really work towards developing so we can expand. I can tell you, we've had 2 or 3 hotels that have come to us that definitely are going to, one for certain, we know is definitely coming. The second one is on the table for discussions. They've got a couple sites they're looking at. We've got 2 or 3 different restaurants that want to come in. So we're already seeing the benefit of making this investment. You're going to see additional
businesses coming in, and I think you're gonna see, those hotel chains are gonna come in, and I think it's gonna be a nice boost for our business community here in Wyndham. So, it's all good news.
Any other questions? Thanks everybody for coming out. Next, I know we have to do one.
Not everybody here is on the phone, right? So not everybody needs to listen to this nice presentation, but we would appreciate it, you know, if you're interested in E1 pumps and what some other businesses are going to have handling their sewage from their facility, welcome to stay. We're going to hang out after this meeting for individual questions. I'm definitely hoping to catch up with Hannaford representatives, if you folks have any other detailed questions. Ian, if you take the presentation home with you, we have our contact phone numbers in there, reach out to us. We're looking forward to working with you and getting this project going. Thank you.
And if you need any assistance on those applications, call us and we'll come out.
When do they need to be in by?
Pardon?
When those applications need to be in by? Is there a time frame?
Probably within the next 60 to 90 days, something like that. But we'll come out and help you fill anything out that you've got questions on. We'll come to your place and help you. Don't worry.
If I could, we also have some preliminary layouts of many of the sites that are going to be connecting. My colleague Andrew back there has the initial cut of that. If people are interested to take a look at that and start a conversation with us now after the discussion with E1, that might also be worth sticking around for if you're interested. So just wanted to throw that out there.
So that's what Greg's referencing, and these are literally hot off the press. I don't have these yet, but these are, the engineer did some basic design work per parcel. And so we'll be meeting with you, looking at that along with our contractor, because, you know, engineers and contractors tend to approach things a little differently. So we'll meet.
This is a very watered down presentation in the interest of time and your interest. However, we do not have a lot, we have a clear agenda today, so we are happy to stay. We'll talk with anyone if you want more detailed information, or at a later time, I'm more than happy to give my contact information. We can either meet, or you can call me, whatever, we can talk about anything if you might have questions. So that being said, most people are familiar with gravity systems and with septic, traditional septic systems. This is pressure sewer. It's not new, but it's not as flowing. People don't know water unless you already have one of these types of systems. So this was actually developed, like I mentioned earlier about the EPA. This was developed by the EPA, this type of system, pressure sewer system, to allow separation of stormwater and wastewater. Ultimately, Environment One created the first pressure sewer and prior pump system back in the late 60s and then early 70s. FR Mahoney has been representing Environment One in New England since 1978. So we have some of the oldest installations right here in New England. So I just like to throw this out there so you guys see that it's not a new technology. It is a newer technology, and there is a high volume, especially in near your area here in York and Cumberland counties, using this type of system. So pressure sewer system itself, what it is it's a small diameter pipe that follows the contour of the land and goes right below the frost zone. Each individual lot or business or residential lot will have its own grinder pump system. So we'll pump up to this shared force main, like I said, that follows that contour of the land right below the frost zone. And then you can pump to either a gravity force main, a pump station, in some cases if you need to put a septic system further away. But that's essentially how it works. So everything's going to come right into the tank, a pump will activate, it'll macerate solids, fit through an 1.25 inch discharge line, and then go up to X number, probably 2 to 4 inch force main, and then go to the final discharge. So it's a pretty simple system as far as pumps go. So we only have one side of pump. So it's a single horsepower, 24 volt, 1724 RPM, semi-closet grinding pump. So when, I know there's going to be varying businesses, different flows and things like that. It's all needs of it. The pump itself is designed as a household appliance or as a appliance. So it's a plug-and-play system. So for serviceability, you know, in an extreme emergency, it can be unplugged and then do or temporary pump can be plugged right in and put back into service in about 10 minutes, give or take. Everything that controls the pump or operates on it is built inside there. So it's again designed that if a part has a failure, we're going to change in part versus changing the whole pump itself. And it's able to be rebuilt and again back into service. So this is kind of like a typical layout. Obviously, it's going to vary depending on the business. But this kind of gives you a good idea of what it looks like on the ground. So, you know, you're going to start with a 4 inlet up to, you can go up to 8 inches on your inlet coming from business or home. That's going to then go off. Every single station will have an 1.25 inch discharge. It will then connect to a service lateral or check valve as well, and then we'll go up to that shared force main. For electrical, you have 2 options. Our preferred method is that everything would be a conduit, but you can have a direct aerial cable. So this is a direct cable that goes underground, and then we'll go right into your alarm box. The alarm box is not a control box. Like I said, everything that runs the pump is built inside there. So that's basically just kind of a dumb version of a control box. It's just going to give you an alarm. It's going to give us some, you know, we can manually run for test features. But that's not going to really control anything for you guys. So that's typically what it's going to look like when it's all installed underground. This is an abbreviated version of that detail, like real life fittings. So, you know, you have your inch-and-a-quarter line coming off from the tank. That's got a stainless steel nipple on it so that when the ground settles, it doesn't actually shear off from the tank and cause it bubbling up for you. That's going to go out to that stainless steel lateral connection. Then it will typically be on the property right before you get to the shear force main. In some cases, there will be a corporation valve that goes to the shared force main so that you need to isolate your line to do any repair work you can. And then that's a shared force main up there. It's a 2 inch in that example. Yes, sir.
For many of these applications, there likely will be a shared force main. For some, however, they may be discharging from a grinder station directly into gravity on an individual service. How would that change what you're looking at here?
You do not have to have a stainless steel lateral in that scenario, so you just have your inch-and-a-quarter line going right out to the gravity. Built in the pump is a check valve already, and since it's not there's not going to be much flow back. Anyways, inside the tank as well, we have an isolation valve so that we'll have nothing coming back if there's any service work on the system. Really watered down. But like I said, I'm very happy to stay and answer questions or answer any questions you guys have on anything. Like, well, different slides and things like that.
So we have perspectives, we need something that can power loss, right?
Sure.
So you have to have generators to support these individual.
You would, yes. So you have a couple different options. One is putting the building and a whole building generator and power this as well. The other option is we can equip the panel with an auto transfer switch. You would still need to have a portable generator to plug into that to power it off. But yes, you need power basically to the session run.
Yeah, one thing to note is generally inside a station you have at least a day or 2 of storage inside that. So if the power is out for 4 hours, 6 hours, it's not a big deal. If power's out for a week, then you might want to look into like the generator receptacle scenario.
But that's very dependent on the type of business that we're talking about.
Right.
It's Planet Fitness, it's not going to be necessarily the case if you've got 4 to 6 hours.
With less power, you're burning up. Yeah.
Right, and that's fair too. Yeah, mostly it's more concern than talking about the residents and such, but again, still even more residents. I always, for example, inclusion power,
Could you just share about, the reliability that we met with you numerous times, and we've asked this question just so we could understand is, how long does one of these units typically last, and what's the maintenance on them? Just so people kind of get an understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the system is designed as a household appliance and a low maintenance system. So virtually there is no preventative maintenance. We don't have a maintenance schedule or anything like that. That being said, just like Scott had mentioned before, this is treated as a sewer system. So you flush wipes, large amounts of grease, air, metals, etc., chemicals, you're going to fail sooner. You're going to cause problems for yourself. If you use it as you would use a you should be using traditional gravity or a septic system, you're going to virtually have no problems, no maintenance required. So our typical lead time between a service event and the service event is just that alarm going off. It could be that a part has worn out and needs to be changed out. It's roughly about 10 to 14 years. I will say that E1 prides themselves on wanting to have the most reliable system out there. So we've made some enhancements to the pump to increase that lifespan for hopefully about 20 years. Unfortunately, we don't have the data yet. We made these enhancements in 2020, so we're not quite there yet. But we do know that we can accurately say between 10 and 14 years between service calls right now is what we have. We have that data from real life customers. It's not like made up stuff. We have networks of 400 to 500 pumps. And we've used their service data to be able to get that more accurate number. Yes, sir.
How do you set up accessibility to this pump? So it's going to be far enough away from the building, we're digging up parking lots, or what's the ability to get at access here?
Sure. So you have two options. Well, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, how do you want to do it? You can put it under a manhole. So if it needs to be in a parking lot, ideally it should be in a landscaped area, if possible. But I understand that like businesses, that might not be the case. So if it's under a manhole, that's fine. We would just do a lateral vent because it does need to be vented. The same thing with the landscaped area. It needs to stick up about 2 to 3 inches so that it can vent out. There's not going to be any odors coming from it because that's another one. I should have had that question off before. Because we're pumping more frequently, so we're not actually storing any wastewater. We don't want to. So we're basically just pumping rainwater. So we're pumping a little more frequently. We're reducing the amount of solids in the tanks. That's why you don't have to pump it like you would a traditional septic system. And because we're keeping it fresh in there, you're not having any odors. We have these at like ice cream stands. We have them in almost every business you can think of. But in this particular ice cream stand, the station sits underneath the picnic table where folks are enjoying their sightings. They're not complaining about any orders or anything like that. Yes, sir.
So we haven't heard that, we take advantage of our existing septic tanks.
No.
And said that,
No, because I don't think these would fit within the existing steps. But they'd be right next to the tank.
just so we manage them, right? So sometimes
It shouldn't. We're just not going to get on the manhole on top of the station itself. So the state, because, like they're saying, we're pumping more frequently. So if you have water, septic tank, and you put a pump in there, what we're doing is storing, we're ultimately just keeping a septic tank. Because you're just storing the waste and solids and not actually being able to pump freely. So our tanks are designed with the system basically being able to continue to flush that system and keep it clean and get wastewater quickly, but also get your solids in there. So if we have that tank in through one of our pumps in there, it's just gonna not do bridging, it's not gonna do this.
If we have existing pumps, are you envisioning going to go anywhere existing pumps are?
That depends on the application, so I think we'll find the right place to cut into the gravity line between your plumbing and your pumping system that may fit in a landscape area or, an esplanade or something like that. But yeah,
One of the things in our research on this is we looked at, there's different companies that do this, but the research we found relates back to where it's shared is the reliability of this system and functionality of it. All pump stations that we are going to install will be E1. It's for the consistency, which makes it easier for servicing. It just it's long-term reliability for us with the least amount of additional hassles, I would say. So that's how we got through this process, I guess, and where we're at.
Where would you put the grease trap in that sewer? Ideally, the grease trap should be for the pump station, so that you can flow.
No, I understand, but it's not.
Let that shut off.
Yeah, each one of those configurations, Dave, would be, that's what we're gonna, as a contractor, ultimately sit with these businesses and kind of work through that.
Right about there.
Yeah.
What I did.
I just asked the question because the majority of people, businesses, they have these trucks.
If you want more information on the E1 pump stations, we can get that to you. We just send you packets of information so you can take a look at it, read through it, and study it. That's perfectly fine. Well, thank you very much, Darrell.
Yeah.
So we've got some time here with a lot of